All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar today. My name is Ashley Limbers, and I'm the marketing lead here at Encompass Solutions. For those of you who might be new to Encompass, let me take a moment to introduce our company. At Encompass Solutions, we specialize in ERP consulting and implementation to help manufacturers solve challenges, streamline operations, and drive growth. And as a premier partner of Epicor, we deliver tailored ERP solutions that empower businesses to succeed. We are headquartered here in Greensboro, North Carolina, and have been in business for 25 years with just over 40 staff members around the globe. And our focus is on manufacturing and distribution, primarily using Epicor software. And one characteristic that makes us stand out is that we're very partner focused. We have almost 20 years of experience selling Epicor software while being part of their Premier Partner Program. And we have a certified team of consultants that partners with businesses like yours to help with ERP implementations, software enhancements, customizations, and reporting. And today we are discussing how to spot gaps in your ERP support, presented by Jonathan Cleveland, our advanced support lead, and Jacob Fawcett, our solutions architect. Just a few things before we get started. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a copy of that recording will be emailed to you. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please type those into the question box in your Zoom control panel, and we'll bring them up during our Q&A session at the end. And we also encourage you to take the survey after today's event. Now, without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Jonathan and Jacob. Our speaker today, Jonathan Cleveland, has been working with Epicor ERP for 6 years. Jonathan's knowledge ranges from simple login help to in-depth application installation and troubleshooting. And our other speaker, Jacob Fawcett, specializes in all aspects of Epicor, including BAQs, BPMs, dashboards, and SSRS. And Jacob has called North Carolina his home for 24 years, and he takes pride in finding solutions that fit the needs of clients' and businesses to help them thrive. So now I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ashley. I suppose this first slide's already what you had touched on, the history of Encompass Solution, founded in 2001. We'll keep on moving. Our relationship with Epicor has stayed strong over the years. We've been an Epicor partner since 2003, a VAR partner since 2005, and we are considered a premier Epicor partner. We have an excellent relationship with Epicor directly through various partner channels, and that helps us maintain the level of support that we are dedicated to providing to all of our customers. And we have a polling question here.
Yep. So our poll question for today is, how would you describe your current ERP support model? Are you primarily reactive? Will you submit tickets when issues arise? Mostly reactive with some proactive guidance? Or is it proactive and strategic? So if you'll go ahead and take that survey for us so we know where our audience is today with their current ERP support model. We'll give a few seconds. Go ahead and take that. All right, thank you for doing that. So, Jonathan and Jacob, it looks like we're pretty split. 50% of attendees mostly reactive with some proactive guidance, and then the other 50% are proactive and strategic um, on our webinar today.
Those are some good numbers. At least no one's is primarily reactive, so everyone is focused on the future, which is always good.
All right. To get started, one of the things we want to focus on is why this matters to manufacturing leaders and executives. The key point, and I think everyone will agree on this, is that the ERP system is mission critical to your manufacturing operations. But the catch point is the higher level teams can lose confidence in your ERP system, especially when production is disrupted, whether that's being unable to ship, unable to invoice, jobs are unable to be completed, or there's unexpected errors during job closing or inventory movement, which obviously every catch point along the way then further delays that uh, conclusion of the sale or job or any of your interactions with a customer, and that's no good for business. One of the other things is when reporting accuracy starts being questioned. So, various routine reports are run, whether that's, end of week, end of month, quarterly, or annually. And when we start seeing things that raise eyebrows, it's easy to become a little bit hesitant in whether or not the ERP is being, air quotes, truthful. One of the other catch points for a lot of customers is everybody thinks the ERP is going well until it's time to upgrade, and that can really shine a light on a couple of issues along the way, whether that's just siloed knowledge where users know how to do exactly what their day job entails, but the depth of what the application's doing with that information and what you can do with the additional information, you end up spotting gaps in between, and we can feel a little bit discouraged when trying to go through a full system upgrade and identify, here's the key processes in motion. And as you get those lined out, you're like, well, what about, how does the return work happen? How do we rework these jobs? How are we tracking the costs on those? And that can further pull the confidence away from the leadership teams. So today, what we want to focus on is understanding what effective ERP support looks like, primarily in manufacturing scenarios. We're going to identify some common support gaps that tend to go unnoticed until it's a major pain point, and how to identify some of those early warning signs before they become major pain points. One of the keys to that is helping you be able to ask better questions of your internal teams and your current ERP partner. Some assumptions get made on an executive level. It's not everybody, but there is a little bit of a removal from most executive teams from the what we would refer to as in the weeds application users. And a lot of the commonalities stem from, well, we already have ERP support. You put a ticket in, it gets resolved, and if there's something wrong, I think we know about it. But the main thing we want to touch on is you don't know what you don't know. And the moment you realize you don't know something can be during a moment of crisis or a large problematic issue that's preventing business from moving forward. What we would consider good ERP support is going to be proactive, not reactive, which touches back on our polling question. What the goal of good ERP support should be is future casting business needs and removing bottlenecks to help the ERP and the business flow as efficiently and function as well as possible. It should be constantly looking at what are the business outcomes. What do they need, not just focusing on, oh, we have a ticket, close it, done, forget. It should be constantly being informed of the manufacturing workflows, and all of these are customer specific. So each business has their own workflows, has their processes in place. And sometimes it takes knowing those very in-depth workflows to be able to provide the support that you would need to be considered good. ERP support should also be continuously monitoring system health, whether that is hosted servers, drive space, networking, etc., and be able to mitigate risk associated with keeping that ERP system in good standing and maintaining solid uptime. To break down the reactive support, proactive support just a little bit deeper, Reactive support would be considered, responding to things only when something breaks. Sitting on the bench waiting for a problem to pop up and then getting the hammer out to smash that one problem. Sure, it closes tickets. Sure, it can get rid of some symptomology. But what we really want to do is focus on proactive support. Support should be identifying trends, root causes, and especially recurring issues. If an issue is recurring, what that tells support is there might be a process problem, or there could be a better way to get from A to B that alleviates the potential of having this recurring issue, which then should be also leading into advising leadership on potential improvements that can be made to streamline and promote efficacy throughout the ERP system and take a lot of the strain off of the end users. Support should always help the business move faster and smarter. It shouldn't just be keeping the lights on. You don't implement an ERP system and get your whole business structured to be functional within the ERP system only to maintain your current business. The goal should always be agility, functionality, and efficacy when it comes to supporting your ERP system. Now we're going to turn it over to Jacob to identify some common support gaps throughout the manufacturing space. Jacob, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. But yeah, the common gaps, they are going to be going over 5 right now, and all of these gaps, I'd say if you're having one, you might fall into a pitfall of another because they build off of each other. The hole only gets deeper. But we're going to start off with number one. One of the main pillars of these gaps is ticket-only reactive support. So what does it look like? If you have where support requires users to report problems as they occur, I kind of describe it as you need an employee to report that there's a fire instead of checking the fire alarm. You should have tools in place that alert you when things are going wrong instead of having to require on a person from describing exactly the problem as it's going. You could also have the same issues resurface repeatedly because, and it ties in if you're not doing any root cause analysis. If you're only checking at the top surface level of what is happening and you aren't digging down to see if there's a commonality between everything from either the tickets are not being looked holistically to see if there's a trend, or if just once they're closed, they're shuffled to the wayside. And these can have a lot of impacts. You can have disruption. You can lose productivity. You can get annoyed as things keep going on. Because I know if I keep having these same problems over and over and over again, eventually I'm just gonna stop trusting or stop using the tool that is causing said issue. And you can lose productivity because it takes time to enter tickets. It takes time out of an employee or a user's day to A, have the problem, and B, log said problem and walk through with support on troubleshooting and testing said problem. And then by the time that it's resolved, the ticket's closed, and then tomorrow they have the exact same problem. And really, that's a lot of those issues kind of compound against each other. And for the second big gap is if there's no ownership of the big picture. If there's no one that at the end of the day has a responsibility or a full view of what is going on. Like I said before, issues get resolved in isolation. No one connects things, even within the ERP, to outside the shop floor. I do believe that whatever ERP you have is a reflection of what you do in your business. It is not a separate entity. So if you're having problems with data entry, is that because, and it's messing up a report, is that due to the process someone's, say, doing on the shop floor when they're entering in quantities? Do they have to write down what they're doing on a sheet of paper and then walk it over to a computer to log their information? Things can happen in between. A funnier example is oil could get onto the paper, and now you've lost all of the stuff you've written down. And anything that breaks down in the process is just treated as a system glitch. Oh, it does that. It's a Tuesday. Well, Tuesday could be when all of shipping is fully booked and slammed on parts trying to get out the door, which means that parts and quantities don't get entered in at the correct time, which can then impact invoicing. It all ties in together. And the business impact is you have inefficient workflows. They become normalized. I am of this philosophy that people, if they're at a job, they want to try and do the best that they can. And if you are having a tool that does not work, well, you're going to try and find a different tool. If the system's down, write it on paper. And if the system's down so often that most of your data is on paper and you never send it back, why would you trust what you're looking at? And eventually, what you've configured with your ERP drifts away from how you're actively running your business. And as the business adapts, your underlying process and your reflection does not update with it. And those are some common problems that occur. The third thing would be a limited manufacturing context. If you're bringing in someone who it's their first time within a machine shop or any kind of shop, and all that they are aware of is the software, they could probably give you a very good answer on how to add a field to a menu. But if they were to tell you, well, I have a lot of experience because there was this customer in scenario A, B, or C, and they used something similar, well, they would not have that experience. And there's also many by the book fixes that don't fit real world operations. Uh, Basically, the internet is a wonderful thing. You can find many out of the box solutions and tutorials and even documentation from your ERP on how to do things. However, you can't ultimately rely on those all the time because many ERPs are designed in such a way where what you are trying to do, you will add on to it and your ERP will grow with you. If you only use what comes in the base reports, you are hindering your business on the success of another person's business and the solutions that they have shared. And eventually, if you want to grow or even adapt to changing trends in the market, you will need to make stuff that is custom. And if you don't have a background in that, well, you can have production slowdowns as you're trying to roll out a solution. You're trying to figure out as you go. Or even the solution that was implemented doesn't actually fit what the people need. So, like before, people find workarounds. And if the solutions that keep getting presented don't do what people need, eventually you're going to stop using the ERP or stop using the tool altogether. The fourth gap that can occur is a lack of system health and risk visibility. If you don't know what you are looking for, as Johnson said before, if you don't know what you don't know, how are you even able to test on your backups or review if the data or reports that you created or are being used are A, being used in the right way, or B, even pulling the correct data that is needed? Uh, you can also run into configuration and customizations risks, where as the years go by, you add in more and more solutions as they go on, and that pile only ever grows. Uh, and if you don't have a handle or even aware of all the customizations that you are creating, and where they all live, you could have some unintended surprises during the upgrade where, say, you're upgrading your system. Well, this report isn't getting updated. Why is it getting updated? Because the data being populated is from a program that's running on a server somewhere, and that was never upgraded to the new version. And you only find that out right as you're pressing the button of go live, which is not when you want to figure out new problems. And you could have the plenty of business impacts with the upgrades and the inaccurate reporting. But I think personally the worst of all is if you have issues with compliance or audits, because I don't know of an auditor who likes the answer I don't know as an answer. And if you do not have at least an idea, you can have a situation where someone's given access to a system, but what they have access is too wide of a scope. Well, that's a problem with an audit. And the previous impacts are very important. You can lose out on potential revenue. You can have employee satisfaction go down. But if you run afoul of compliance or audits, that could be fines or, depending on how severe the gap is, potential jail time. So you always want to be able to keep in mind and a hold of what you've created. And last but not least is executive blind spots. The high-level overview and leadership direction of how the business goes, they need a lot of data, and you need the data that you need summarized and accurate and delivered in a concise manner. And just because you have someone on paper helping out with your ERP does not mean it's being utilized in the best way. Because if you're only reacting to problems and you're fixing tickets, well, it turns out in the past year, no new things have been done, even though in the past year you've done a lot of new things in your business. There's also metrics around the ERP utilization. The simplest of this is a user requested a report to be created. Well, did they actually use said report? It cost a pretty penny to get the report made, but did anyone follow up to see, is the report actually being used? Does it work as expected? Are there any changes that need to be made to the report? Or does that require the user to break out of their normal flow of process to realize something is wrong, to then ask support to please make a change 2 months after the change needs to be created? And like before, you have issues that only arise during a crisis. What do you mean this program was running at this time? Why wasn't this implemented? Uh, who was in charge of that? Who wrote that down? And all of this stuff can compound onto each other where eventually your ERP can become a hindrance of growth instead of working with you and being a growth multiplier. So ultimately, those are several gaps that can occur uh, with reactive support.
So we're going to discuss how to support these gaps within your organization. A couple of questions to ask yourself, your fellow executive level teammates, or your users. One of the top ones, especially for an on-premise ERP system, is can we see the health and risk within our ERP? This can, we touched on it a little bit, but this can be server health, backup consistency, usage, and even where the fault lines are within your maintenance that can help you identify, okay, well, if we do have a network disruption or if we lose a drive, how much of the day are we going to lose if one of those situations occurs? Another one we've touched on several times is, are these issues recurring? Are we having users, once, twice a week, or once every month, every time we get to month end? Do we keep seeing the same problems arise, whether with the same user base or throughout various users? And you can use those questions to identify, okay, well, where might this hiccup be? What can we do to get in front of it to, again, remove the bottleneck and streamline the usage of our system? As Jacob mentioned, when we have recurring issues, it's when manual workarounds start to increase. So one of those questions is, hey guys, or noticed a couple of you aren't using the system as you were a couple of weeks ago. Why is that? What's going on that is causing the, again, lack of confidence in the ERP to where you're working through manual workarounds? Does the thought of an upgrade feel risky or disruptive? Upgrading should be a continual part of maintaining the health and integrity of your ERP system. As all of us know, technology is just moving right along. Every year it feels like leaps and bounds are made, and the business should be staying on top of those changes, getting those functionality enhancements, getting those bug fixes during those upgrade times. And it shouldn't be such a daunting task that you shy away from performing the upgrades. And does our support system advise us or just respond to the symptoms? Again, one of the key things of good ERP support is your support team should be able to read the room, future cast these issues, identify whether it's been recurring or not, and be able to help devise a plan to get in front of and resolve the root cause of these issues, not just respond to someone in pain. We have two real world examples for you. I'm going to turn it back over to Jacob for the first one.
Hello again. So yeah, the first real world example going to be going over is about a manufacturer who's trying to implement serial numbers within their ERP for the first time. And personally, I believe that serial numbers are a blessing and a curse because they satisfy the ultimate requirement of pointing exactly down to what part and can even sometimes even what process what part went through and track down exactly so you have a true standard of quality when you're trying to work through uh, quality measures or when you're identifying what parts are used where. However, it is very difficult to implement correctly because many businesses are, if they've never done it before, are not fully prepared for the scope of having every single I and every single T dotted out. That serial number is required to be used effectively. So in this scenario, uh, one of the customers for this manufacturing plant, they had a new requirement where all of their parts needed to be serialized. And they had a hard cutoff date where serial numbers needed to be implemented by this time. Now, the company had dealt with customers with serial numbers before, but they had a manual process. They would hand type them out onto a computer, onto a document, and then print that out onto labels and go from there. And in once they were done with that, then they might put into the comments somewhere or log somewhere in the system that serial numbers were done and which ones. And what this company wanted to try and do was go through a full serial number process within their ERP, where they would track down, okay, these serial numbers were consumed. We know these were consumed because, well, they were used at this date, at this time for this part, and it's a rolling list of all serial numbers. And it was a really big dream and they wanted to do it, but they did not know how. They knew how to work serial numbers, but not within the ERP itself. And the ultimate outcome was they were not able to implement the serial numbers within the ERP to a satisfactory way they wanted. And so they fell back on what they knew, which was the manual process. They did what they had to do to make the customer satisfied, so there was no issue there. However, as more and more, that's another customer on the list and pile that if you're ever trying to upgrade or improve your system, now you're going to have to figure out how to account for them in the future. And if you have another customer that has this same request and you want to implement it, you do have a bit more experience on doing it. But if what you tried to implement, if you didn't log exactly what you did, or Worst case scenario, the person who tried to implement before left and took all the knowledge with them. You're essentially just starting from scratch until eventually you can't muscle through anymore. So that's just examples of thinking of where if you don't have the experience, it is possible, but you will be struggling and trudging through to try and get a solution through, especially when you have a hard deadline.
So second real world example is unforeseen issues during an upgrade process. So it's not uncommon for upgrades to be an all teams, all hands on deck kind of scenario, but a commonality and a recurring theme that is seen throughout ERP support is the lack of awareness by users regarding key processes or downstream effects of long-term behavior. That sort of leans on the idea of manual workarounds being in place, or maybe there's a lack of user training where two users have the exact same responsibility within the business, yet one is doing one thing and the other is doing a second. You come to this upgrade process and you go, okay, well, how do we test these things? And you realize that your user base has been doing different things to perform the same tasks. This leads right into where we have siloed testing procedures that lack full scope. The upgrade process, again, it's front to back. It's the soup to nuts, if you will. And it's really important to make sure that there is visibility of whether you do quoting or if it's just orders all the way through to invoicing and getting things shipped out. You want to make sure that the scope of which your users have in the ERP system is not only confident, but utilizes functionality at hand to make sure we're providing clear, concise data and the ability to test from front to back, transitioning through each work role and all of that information being available inside of your system to where you can make the confident choices you need during the upgrade process to determine whether certain customizations are needed to be brought up or if the upgrade is going to alleviate the need for certain customizations or reports, things along those lines. And when we see this happen, it becomes a rocky upgrade pathway. And that even more drives the stake in between the adoption of the ERP and as well as the confidence and the purpose of the upgrade altogether. Users see recurring problems, they're unsure of how to perform things within the system, not sure, how to troubleshoot a particular screen or issue that may come up during the upgrade just due to a change in the functionality. This all degrades the confidence in the ERP and especially in the upgrade itself, because I'm sure we all are understanding of, if we're losing confidence in the system, why are we going to upgrade it if even when the upgrade happens, we're seeing more problems? It's not a good position to be in. What everyone should be looking for out of ERP support is much fewer disruptions. The ERP should work as a well-oiled machine, manufacturing, pun intended. You should have fewer disruptions. Users should not be having to stop what they're doing on the floor or at their desk, turn around, tag support, and go, hey, for the 33rd time, we're having this problem. Not sure why it's happening. After the first or second issue, you should never have users going, I don't know why this is happening. Really leans back on root cause analysis and full understanding of the system to be able to get in front of these disruptions. Should enable better decision making from a leadership perspective. You should be able to be confident in your ERP. You should know that what the business needs is going to fall in line with what we can do in the ERP and vice versa. The ERP should be able to be agile enough to be constructed and configured in a way that enables those decisions to be made. Getting back to just the maintenance of the ERP, upgrades should never, ever be oh man, upgrade time. Here we go. You should be confident. You should be excited for the functionality increases that come with upgrading, whether that's changing a UI, just better modules or menus that allow your users to have more visibility and or just enhanced functionality and get the job done faster. We should see users excited to adopt the ERP system. If your user base is hesitant to get in there and get working, it makes everyday tasks seem that much more difficult. And back at the executive level, you should have all of the visibility you need to make those clear, clean business decisions to enable growth and continue to move your business forward. Executives should be able to trust the ERP support to reduce the surprises. Nobody wants to come in and hear, well, actually shipping's down again, or, well, we tried to close month end and I know we've got an audit coming up and we can't get the numbers right. There shouldn't be surprises. This should be a trustworthy and confident system in which you can lean on to promote your business's functionality, your day-to-day tasks, the growth of your business, and it should be protecting the business in the event of compliance checks, audits, all of those items. ERP support should be a strategic asset, not a cost center. You should be seeing value from ERP support that greatly outweighs the cost to maintain that support level. This is where proactive approach is critical because in order to be an integrated part of the business, be able to provide the level of support that I believe all of us really expect, should be a strategic decision and a strategic group that is able to keep up with your business specific needs, able to look into the future of, hey, here's what we're needing down the road. How can we structure the system to provide that level of functionality or visibility, what have you, and not be a hindrance when it comes to costs. We'll get into next steps. Ashley, did you want to take it from here?
Yeah, that would be great. If you could just transition to the next slide for me. I think this is, I can talk about this one, sure. So we can do a structured ERP support review. And that can, and if not us, your partner that you currently work with, identifying hidden gaps, highlight risk areas that you're experiencing within your business or that you could experience, and then provide a clear improvement roadmap. Having clarity within your business is, key, and that's important. All right, so we're going to go into, thank you, Jacob and Jonathan, for all of that great information. That was really good. We're going to go in time for questions. So if you do have a question, just a friendly reminder to type those into your Q&A box on the chat panel, and we will answer those for you. And then while we're waiting for questions to come in, Jonathan, if you can transition for me. Thank you. Oh, yep, perfect. So we do want to highlight one of our events upcoming next month. We're going to be talking about EDI Simplified, stopping manual entry for good. So we're going to be talking about what EDI is and what it isn't, and where manual processes are slowing you down, how manufacturers are successfully transitioning from manual entry to automation, and then what would the practical first step into an EDI solution look like. And so if you are interested, we'd love to have you join us. You can scan that QR code and register for that. And then you can transition to the next slide, please. As a thank you for attending this webinar, we are giving away a streamlined automation audit where we can um, kind of review with you what automation you currently have in place at your business and make recommendations on how to better automate. And so you can scan that QR code and fill out the form and check the box for the automation audit. And one of our team members will reach out to you. So, yep. And let me just check to see if we do have any questions.